Hello, I'm Janet Miranda, the Executive Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to our program. And of course, November is the month that is called National Adoption Month. And that's the month where we draw like a bright light on the possibility of adoption. You know, it's very, very sad. But when surveys are done of women who have had abortions, and you ask them the question, you know, wouldn't you have rather placed your baby for adoption? For a long period of time, many women were saying no. They were afraid of adoption. They were afraid of giving this concept of giving up my child and wondering what will happen to my child and they're going to come back and try to find me and oh my goodness and this and that. And it's very sad. And the problem, I think, is not enough people know that adoption could be such a beautiful experience. It could be the loving option, as you know, that phrase, adoption is truly a loving option. Well, today on the program, I'm going to be interviewing actually a good friend of mine. She's my cousin, actually. And I remember going through this experience with her. But we're going to find out from a woman who did do an adoption what that journey was like. So, Kim, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having me.
And of course, as I alluded to, you know, you are my cousin. And of course, I watched your journey from the time you were a little girl. And, you know, you married and you had your firstborn son, Nicholas. But then, you know, after Nicholas was born, you wanted to have more children. So tell us about that journey a little bit.
Yes, Janet. Nick was born in 1997, and that was a beautiful blessing. We were all very excited. But we had some issues having Nicholas. He was a twin, and we had a situation where his twin didn't survive. So
you miscarried the twin.
I miscarried.
Yeah.
And I was told.
And at first we thought you lost Nicholas.
That's right.
Because we didn't even know there were twins there at the time. Right. That's how they found out, which happens, believe it or not, to a lot of women.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then you miscarried Nick's twin.
Nick's twin. And we were told from that point on that there may be some more issues if we did try. So to be grateful that we had Nicholas and that worked for a short time. That was great. And we were always grateful. But I wanted to add to my family.
Right.
And continue these beautiful blessings. And unfortunately, along the infertility route, it wasn't as fortunate for me.
Well, you did have a couple of miscarriages after you lost Nick's twin. There were a few more miscarriages, weren't there?
Unfortunately, yes, I did have 3 miscarriages, and they were very traumatic because each and every one of them, I was placed on the same floor as women were giving birth. I was losing mine. So it was just a very traumatic time for me. And after the 3rd time, I surrendered. And I realized that having faith is not running the show. And I took a seat aside from my higher power and let him drive the car.
You let God take over.
I let God take over.
And you said, well, God, I guess I can't have any more children myself, but I want to bring another child into this family. That was the decision process you made?
Absolutely. And during that transition of acceptance and understanding that it may not be exactly the way I thought, and when I surrendered and allowed God to work his will, and within 6 weeks, I met Alex's mom, Elizabeth, who was the birth mother.
Wow. Now, of course, Alex is your adopted son.
He is.
And he is now 13 at the time of this taping, almost 14. Yeah. And he came to visit me here in Florida. Yes, so I got to see what it's like to have a teenager in my house. But tell us a little bit more about the process, because your adoption process, I think, was a little bit more unusual than the average. Because, well, first of all, you did have to go through a screening process, right? Where they came and they looked at your husband and you and Nicholas in the house. So tell us about that.
You have to have a screening process. You can't have any background records. They screen test you for drugs, mental issues, or anything under that line. They come see your home to make sure your home is safe. and that the environment is where the baby, would
It's
be a
going to be
good fit.
nurturing environment.
Yeah, and they do screen it well because there's different fits for each and every different child that's out there.
Right.
And this seemed like a really good fit. So when we met Elizabeth, it was from the get-go just a very positive experience.
Tell us about that, because I think, you in particular, I think maybe because I know your personality, Kim, it was you're like motherly and nurturing. How did you develop this relationship with the adoptive mother? Because very often, from what I understand, a lot of women who are considering placing their child for adoption, social services or a lawyer, whoever the case may be, will give them folders of several possibilities of parents for their baby. And they get to look at the folder and they say, okay, I'm choosing these for my baby. But tell us, how did you and Elizabeth connect?
Okay. Well, with my situation was I had a neighbor who also was going through adoption. And when she was at the lawyer's finishing up her process, the phone call came in from Elizabeth, who was looking for, she found an article that gave her help and gave her the number to this lawyer who helped teens or moms out there that had nowhere to turn. And she turned to them. And at that process, right at that time, my neighbor said, before we go any further, I have someone that I think would be a really good candidate for this young lady.
Right.
So she did have a couple of different people, and Elizabeth did choose Anthony and I and Nicholas as her family. And that's how the process began.
Right. And Elizabeth was a little unusual too, thank God. I mean, she never considered abortion. And she was basically hiding her pregnancy from her other family members, because she had 2 other children out of wedlock. And she was afraid of the negative chatter among different family members, like, oh, you're pregnant again. Because she was only 19 when she was pregnant with Alex. So she had already been a real teen mom at 15, I think you said. And then again at 17, and now 19, pregnant again. And so she kind of went exploring this whole adoption process on her own, didn't she?
She did.
Yeah.
She did. She really, she looked into many options and felt comfortable. And it really was a miracle, Janet. It was an absolute blessing.
So many adoptive parents do not get to see the baby until X amount of days after the baby's born, and there's a babysitter where they're handing the baby over. But you developed a relationship with Elizabeth during her pregnancy. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so that was exciting. I met her when she was 6.5 months pregnant. And on our first interview, we connected as if mother and daughter. She was the daughter I've never had, and I was the mother figure that she didn't have. So we connected immediately. I made sure she was fed well, she was taken care of, and I loved her as if, she was my child. Right. So it was a beautiful experience all around. I also wanted her to know any way that she decided, we were always going to stay connected and, support her with any way.
So you basically were supporting her in that fact, like, listen, Elizabeth, I know you've picked me and Anthony to be the parents for your baby, but if you change your mind at the last minute, we will not be mad at you. Exactly. We will not be upset. Be at peace. I mean, that was, kind of unusual too. And so now you were communicating with her. You were living in Long Island, New York. Elizabeth was in Pennsylvania.
Correct.
And then, so all during that latter part of her pregnancy, you were in communication, and you were making sure, like, I know, sending her money to make sure she could get groceries and she was well cared for.
Went on her visits with her. Really? It was very interesting. We went on the visit. So he knew my voice because we'd go for sonograms together.
So you actually went to her doctor appointments?
I went to her doctor appointments.
Wow.
She wanted me a part of the journey. So that's really magnificent. Unusual. And there's a lot of young women that do want that. They're afraid to ask for it.
And
but when I did ask, she accepted.
That was
wonderful. To get that moment. Yeah.
So now when she went into labor, one of the first phone calls she made was to you. So tell us about that.
That was exciting, Janet. did receive a call early in the morning, and they wanted to induce her even more because she was in labor for a while. And she said, no, I have to wait until the mom comes. His mom.
So she referred to you as the mom.
Yes, she did.
Oh, wow.
And I said, no, please just do what you need to do.
Have the
I'm
baby,
always
but I'll
here
get there.
for you. Yeah. And she did wait for us, and we were able to deliver the baby together. And
So you were in the
was
labor and delivery
in.
room with her.
Yes.
So
yes.
you saw
My husband-
Alex.
Yeah.
You probably saw Alex before she saw Alex. Got kind of by the positioning of
Actually,
things.
Yeah,
Right?
she wanted Alex for me to hold him first. And he knew when he opened his eyes, when I embraced him and told him how much I loved him and how long I've been waiting for him, he opened his eyes and he held on to my shirt. He grabbed on, and he knew exactly. He was placed in the right arms, and
You even cut the umbilical cord,
we cut
right?
my husband and I, my ex-husband and I, cut the umbilical cord. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Some experience. Now, according to, people don't realize every state has different laws.
Yes, they do.
When a baby is going to be placed for adoption, how long you have to wait until the baby can be taken from the mother or from the hospital with the adoptive parent. So in Pennsylvania, it was how long?
Yeah, every state has a different change of heart. So that's a great question. Pennsylvania, we did have to stay there for at least a week for the whole process, change of heart, and then the lawyers with the paperwork. So that was, it's a nerve-wracking week. But I was fortunate again, Elizabeth made sure that she told the lawyers the day that she left the hospital, she made a phone call, actually showed up to the lawyer and wanted them to put a phone call to put my mind at ease that it was going to be okay and she wasn't going to take the baby, that she knew what she did was the right.
So
Perfect
during this
choice.
week, you and your husband are staying in a hotel.
Mhm.
Elizabeth leaves the hospital. Where's Alex go?
With me.
So Alex is with you
Mhm.
in a hotel room, and you're, feeding for him, caring for him.
Yes.
And so this is that change of heart period of time
Yes.
where Elizabeth has one final week to say, "Are you sure?"
Yes.
kind of thing.
Mhm.
Wow.
And you bring him to appointments and make sure they check up, make sure he's still in the state.
Right.
So we had some appointments. We had to show up with the baby,
Right.
make sure he was in good health.
Pediatrician and all that.
Pediatrician, his shots for the first week.
Okay, so now day 7 comes. What happens? Tell us about that.
Day 7 comes, and I receive a call from the lawyer's office that Elizabeth was sitting on the step waiting for the lawyers to show up.
To open up.
So
Oh,
she
my
can
goodness.
sign over the papers. So I didn't have to sit anymore with any type of stress or unease. And she wanted me to move on because I've been waiting 12 years. And she made sure that the lawyer told me that this is what I've been waiting for. It's time for me to move on in my life with my child.
Wow. Now,
Yeah.
his name is Alex.
Alex.
Who selected the name, you or Elizabeth?
We both did because
Really?
of my ex-husband's mom. Her name was Alva, so we did Alex for Alva. And
the letter A.
And for the letter A, so it was
Right.
Alex Joseph, and that was Anthony's dad. So we did AJ, and that was Elizabeth's favorite name, was AJ.
Oh, wow.
So between Alex Joseph, she said, as long as you call him AJ. But
and I remember when Alex was a little kid, we called him AJ for the longest time. And now that he's a teenager,
he wants to be Alex.
No AJ anymore. It's Alex. The kids become very formal. I don't want to be called. They think AJ is like a childish name.
Child, right.
Yeah.
So
okay, so now, you leave Pennsylvania and the adoption is official. Alex is now yours for life. Did you have any more contact with Elizabeth, or she just cut the ties at that point?
She asked that we would respect her and allow her to just move on with her life. And she wasn't up for keeping any connections. She knew that Alex was in the best hands, and I would always have a connection with Alex, would always keep us connected.
Right.
And
so now your other son,
Nicholas,
by the time that all this happened, Nicholas was about a teenager himself. He was like 12.
12.
Right? Yeah. So now I think Nicholas's story is a little funny too for people, because when you have other children and then adopt another child, sometimes the kid who's already in the family has their own opinion. So what was Nicholas like when you brought home Alex?
Well, Nick was great when we first arrived. He thought he was really cute and sweet, and the whole idea was just fabulous. And after about 3 weeks, some sleepless nights, he said, "Can we send him back to Allentown? Can he go back where he came from?" And I said, "No, Alex is your brother, and he's our child, and he's our child. He's a part of our family." And Nick was, you sure we can't send him back?
I said,
No,
no, that option doesn't exist anymore. But then he did settle down, right?
you
And
know,
and actually, right now, you think like Nicholas is 25, almost 26, and Alex is 13, and people
right,
must say, well, he's like a young adult, and he's a teenager.
right.
But I've seen that Nicholas, he's almost like a dad
He's
to
very
Alex
much a
now.
father figure. He is an
He's
awesome
become
older brother.
so close to Alex, right?
So close, so close. And as they get older, they get closer. And Nick appreciates more of the whole beautiful idea of how Alex was brought to us and how
Right.
much he really is a part of our
He's
our
part of the
family.
family. Well, yeah, I know he's part of my
Yeah.
family too.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I don't see any difference between Nicholas or Alex. They're my
No.
cousins, both
that's
equal.
right.
But now, here's the thing that a lot of people, I guess, worry about Alex. When did he actually begin to hear? I mean, when he's a baby and a toddler and a little kid,
Mhm.
he probably doesn't know he's adopted. At what point did you, and how old was he when you kind of told him of the situation so he understood that he was adopted
We always spoke of it since he was born.
in the family?
In the
yeah.
family. 'Cause
Right.
we never had shame. We were always so proud of Elizabeth and the whole situation. And we were proud to share our experience because there's so many negative experiences. When you hear such a delightful story, you want to share this.
Right.
So I was so proud of this whole, like this adoption. So, but then I realized that he might not be as comfortable as I was. So around 3, I started to kind of keep it down a little. And I bought some really great children books on adoption. And I started to read to Alex about adoptions. So it wasn't foreign.
Right.
And then when he was in kindergarten, he got up in front of the whole class and decided to tell everyone he was adopted. But when he realized that no one else in class was adopted, then he came home and said, "Well, why am I so different?" Because to Alex, he thought maybe everyone was adopted. He didn't know.
he didn't know.
So when the
this is
teacher-
just something everyone
exactly.
does.
So
They
he
get
got up and
adopted.
told the whole class, "I'm adopted, and this is my story. Now let me hear about yours." And they're all like, "No, we don't have a story quite like that,
So he realized, there's
Something's
something
different.
different about being adopted.
Exactly.
Ah.
And then I would say around 5 and a kindergarten was when we explained to Alex that his mom wanted to give him a much better life than she had experienced, unfortunately.
So he began to embrace
Have
the
an
concept
understanding.
from 5 on about being adopted.
Yeah, and how special he is.
Yeah.
How
And I
special.
mean, now I know he knows he's adopted and he talks about it like
Yeah.
it's nothing, okay, that's something that happened, but this is my mom.
This is it. This is
And
the
he
way
understands
it
that.
is. He
I
knows.
noticed too, because I think people worry when their adoptive child gets to be like in these teen years, are they going to begin to wonder or look for their birth mother?
Sure.
And I mean, you could tell us what your experience is with Alex, but from what I see, he really has no desire or no connection there. But tell us when he talks to you about it, what does he say? Does he kind of say, "Oh, I'd like to know who my birth mother is, get a picture," especially now with Facebook, you know what I'm saying? And the social media,
Exactly.
that didn't exist decades ago. Now, social media has made it easier than ever before for kids to start searching to see who their parents, the real birth mother is.
Exactly.
What's been Alex's
Exactly.
discussion?
And that's a great question. Because with Alex, being that we do talk about it so much, and it is, I would think he would be comfortable,
Right.
but he wasn't until about a year ago comfortable enough to ask about if he had brothers and sisters. So that was interesting because out of nowhere, he said, "I want to ask you, do I have brothers or sisters?" And I said, "From my knowledge, you have 2 other sisters." And I went into it, and he was ready to understand it, not ready to look for them at this point, but he was happy, and he thanked me for my honesty.
Right.
And then he didn't no longer, I mentioned, if you have any desire, I will support you and will, look her
Right.
up. She didn't want to keep it open, but I'll support you, whatever you want to do. I never want him to have any fear of looking for her, but also I have to let him know to respect her as well as, what she did ask for.
Well, at the time, she didn't want to have a connection. She wanted to just let him
Right.
go, which was very,
Exactly.
giving of her to realize, cut the ties and let him grow up
Right.
and with you as his real mom. Okay, so see, he wanted just a curious. I think how those questions come up in children's mind is as you get older and you take more courses in school, you
Mhm.
learn about your heritage and they begin to talk about your nationality and your
Exactly.
background. So it must have caused that much what triggered it in Alex to say, okay, I was adopted. Nicholas is my brother. But what about my birth mother? Were there other kids? So that's where he wanted to know.
Exactly.
Oh, I have
Mhm.
two sisters out there somewhere.
Yeah.
But yet he's
No.
not. He doesn't want to look them up just yet.
No, he said,
Yeah,
nope, you're my mom, and God brought me to you, and this is
and she's
the
accepted
way it
that.
is. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
very happy with his
Right.
situation.
So if you could say something right now to a young girl who's out there, she's pregnant and she doesn't know what to do, and unfortunately, as you know, Kim, some of them consider abortion. What would you like to say that might help them realize don't go down that road. Think about adoption. That this is really a good path to take. What would you say to them?
If they understood the amount of love that they would be giving to a family and to see the transformation and how powerful that could be, I think that would just change everything. If they would, for me, just embracing her with open arms and lots of love changed everything
Right.
because they're so fearful of not having that support and love. And when you could
Right.
support them and love them and let them know that you're gonna, no matter what the situation is, we're gonna love you. We're gonna love you through this,
That's
and we're
right.
gonna make it through.
Yeah.
And that would be my words of wisdom.
And if you could say something now, if Elizabeth were watching or
Oh,
listening, what would you want to say to Elizabeth?
thank you. Thank you for giving me life
Yeah.
because he completed my family.
Yeah. I know he did.
Yes.
And I just hope so many mothers who are considering what to do
And I
would see the
pray
joy he's brought to you and your family
beyond.
and
I thank God every day
and
for her.
realize that it is a beautiful thing to do to
Amazing.
make an adoption plan. And it really is, as that phrase is,
Yeah.
adoption is a loving option. So Kim, thank you for joining me.
Thank
It
you.
was a pleasure having our little cousin conversation here.
Thank you for
And
having
I
me.
hope many people now will consider going down this road to
Amen.
adoption. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, brothers and sisters, thank you too for joining us on this program. And I hope you're considering now that November is Adoption Awareness Month. You've heard a beautiful story here today. Don't let it just stay here. Repeat this. Encourage people out there. Maybe at your church, you might just put that little phrase. Adoption is a loving option. And maybe find out where are the nearest adoption services right in your own community. Because the problem is there aren't enough people out there talking about positive adoption stories, and we could be saving lives. So many mothers, I think, would not go down that road to abortion if they knew there were hands reaching out there to tell them, we'll help you. We'll take you down this road. Help them to a pregnancy center near you, because a pregnancy center near you will show them the path to adoption if they'd like that. And you can find out where the nearest pregnancy center is to you by going to pregnancycenters.org. You go to that website, put in your zip code, and you'll see where the nearest pregnancy center is to your home. And again, pregnancycenters.org. You need to be an ambassador to the positive message of adoption. This is Janet Morano, the Executive Director of Priest for Life. Thank you for joining us today, and God bless.